Good evening, and welcome to our session this evening with the Calumet Township Assessor's Office, where we're discussing the assessed valuations and how they work in Calumet Township, in particular, the city of Gary. And while this is a first district meeting, we certainly have invited folks from across the city to participate. I want to acknowledge Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell of the 5th District, who has joined us. And also to acknowledge, of course, our special guest, Mr. Ed Golson of the Calumet Township Assessor's Office. Our main objectives this evening are to explain, number one, how the assessed valuation process works. I'm very aware that many folks have had a sharp increase in the assessed valuation of their properties. I'm also aware of the referendum and how the referendum's application in combination with the assessed valuation increase has caused questions and in some cases concern. I do want to, just as a matter of background, I've gotten questions about who voted for it, what were the vote results when it comes to the referendum. And so I thought I would just review those numbers. In the city overall, 60.32% of the voters, that is 13,901 voters voted yes for the referendum. 39.68% of the voters voted no. That's 9,146 people. Within the 1st district, 2,339 voters voted yes, and 2,579 voters voted no. So it was 47.6% for and 52.4% against. Nevertheless, the city is bound not by district, but by the entire city when it comes to the application of referenda. I'm hopeful that at some point in our meeting, I know she has a conflict, that the chief of our Gary Community School Corporation, Dr. Paige McNulty, will be able to come on and explain how they're using those dollars as well as their ambassador program. That notwithstanding, we're going to get started. And we have some general questions that I will ask. And I encourage all participants, and I thank you for taking time to participate this evening, to put your questions in the chat box. So you could, at any point when we're talking, add your questions into the chat box. And those questions will be asked of Mr. Golson. And if we can't answer something that may be extremely specific to your scenario, we'll certainly make sure that everyone has Mr. Golson's information to be able to follow up with his office. So Mr. Golson, maybe you should start by introducing yourself, your role at the Calumet Township Assessor's Office, how the Assessor's Office services the community, and then I'll have a few general questions, and then we'll ask specific questions from residents. Mr. Golson.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. My name is Edward Golson. I am the Chief Deputy Assessor with the Calumet Township Assessor's Office. I have worked with this office over 20 years and 4 different assessors. And I will welcome any questions that you might have and offer any explanations that I can.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. First question, how are assessed values determined? What is the process? Who does it? How often is it done? What is the cycle? To explain how that process works.
Well, originally, assessments over the years were based on cost. There's cost schedules that were sent out on a regular basis by the DLGF, which it was called it was a Regulation 17. And that's how assessments were determined. Is basically were determined under cost, the square footage, and the type of material that was used in the house, and also when it was built. That changed when it changed to market value. Market value has somewhat of a little combination of the cost and the market value, trying to get to a true market value. So in order to do that, we're regulated by the Department of Local Government and Finance to do what is called a ratio study. The ratio study is done on an annual basis, and that includes the sales that were taking place in the different neighborhoods throughout a community. Those sales are then determine what the market is, what properties are selling for, what similar properties are selling for. And then there is a factor that's applied to the current values in order to bring it to market value.
And can you say a little bit more about the various districts? I believe last time we talked almost a year ago, you were explaining that there are about 90 to 98 different neighborhood districts in terms of how that is broken down and how the property comparisons take place. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, most of there are actually 97 neighborhoods, and all of those are pretty much delineated by the areas, year construction. Just for example, like the Midtown, the Means Manor area, the Emerson area, depends on the construction and how the community grew is where the similar properties are. So once that's determined, because there has to be some cutoff, there's been some question as to, well, why aren't the neighborhoods bigger? But that is how they are defined at this particular point. There's 97 neighborhoods. You have I think there's actually 4 or 5 neighborhoods in your district, in the Miller district. And of course, there's neighborhoods throughout. I know one of the questions that I was looking at some of the information. There's a couple of neighborhoods in the Miller area that we are actually reevaluating. And one of those is 2512. 2512 is the neighborhood that's directly on the lake, and also the neighborhood that's directly behind the lake. And so we are evaluating those. Those have been, 2512 has been the most hit by the ratio studies and the factors that have been applied. Although I have met with individuals in your district, and we have also employed some appraisers for the land value and also for some of the improvement values. I would probably say in that particular neighborhood, there's 119 properties that I guess from their point of view would have been adversely affected by assessment increases. Although most of the ones that I've met with agree that the property value is probably that much. But we applied DLGF guidelines in our ratio study, which we're required to do. They run a Walt Whitman test before it's approved, and then we move forward with those values. That particular neighborhood, I think, again, I've looked at some of the work that's been done by the appraisers, and there might be some adjustments in that particular neighborhood.
Thank you.
Throughout the city, overall, I think has been a very nominal increase as far as assessments is concerned. Most of the calls that we receive are calls that's related to, well, once we determine after the taxpayers have called, that is related to the referendum. And let me encourage, and I'll go through that process, but let me encourage everyone who's listening and your friends, if you have any question about your assessment, please file an appeal and protect your rights, because we will look at and evaluate every appeal that's submitted.
So let me just ask a deeper question about the appraisers. How are those appraisers, chosen, and how do you evaluate their work? So when they are doing the appraisals, how are they chosen, and how is their work evaluated by your office?
The appraisers that we have chosen are actually, we have a vendor list with the county, and just ask around. There's work that's been done, and also the appraisers that we chose have also done work for us. So it's just whether they are on the county vendor list and their past work.
Okay. Two questions from residents. Where can we get a list of the 119 properties to find out if ours is included? You mentioned, I believe, within the 2512 neighborhood,
Yes.
lakefront, that there were 119 properties. Is that
Mhm.
list public, or would they need to call your office?
I could provide that list for you. I
Okay.
don't have any. That's public information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So send that to me, and I'll make sure I know the person that she gets it, and I'll distribute it. If it's a link, I can just post it uh, at an appropriate place for people to get it.
Okay. And I forgot to mention that the appeal deadline is June 15th. So for
Okay.
anyone who's interested or contemplating filing an appeal, please do it before June 15th or on June 15th, no later than.
Okay. So let's see here. We have another question, and we're going to get into the appeals process shortly. There's a question here. What is the time frame being applied to the ratio study? For 2020 taxes, which months are you taking the comp data from?
Well, on the ratio study, there's an option. The DLGF gives you an option to use 2 years or 1 year. If you're in a uh, if you're in a community that has a great number of sales, that community might only use 1 year. In our particular situation, we use 2 years, and that is an option. And we have used 2 years for the last, I think, 3 years with our ratio study.
So let me ask one additional question as it relates to the ratio. Um, I think when you look at many of the assessed values compared to the actual sales prices or list prices for homes, the assessed values tend to be lower
Yes.
than what we're actually listing properties for and what properties are actually selling for. So there's a question about how you compare market value, which is most of the times higher than the assessed value, with the assessed value. So how do you sort of finesse that difference between market value and assessed value?
That's what the ratio study does. And then you have certain formulations that are used in the ratio study. And then once that's determined, there's a market factor that is applied to each of the properties in that particular neighborhood. It's not citywide, it's only that particular neighborhood. You take the count of all the sales, um, you determine what is the median, the mean, you have a weighted mean, you have the PRD, which is the price related differential, and the COD, which is a coefficient of disbursement. All of those are formulated, and then you come up with a neighborhood trend. Once that trend is applied, then that's what the value is. It's an effort to get from cost, what we started with years and years ago, to the market, based on the sales, and then it trends up.
Thank you. And so I'm seeing some comments here about the 119 properties that comes as a link, or we can make it a PDF. We'll certainly put that on next door. We're now going to get into the appeals process. And so you mentioned that the deadline to file an appeal is June 15th, 2021. And I know there's two types of appeals from what I recall. And if you can please correct me, but there's one related to the value where you're looking at the comps of other properties and how they compare to similar properties within that neighborhood area. But there's also corrections about square footage, or whether or not a basement is finished or unfinished, whether it's, other kind of things that are errors in the property report card. So can you explain, there's different forms, I believe, for each type of appeal, how those appeals work?
Yes. Actually, they're both filed on the same form. It's called a 130. It's a state form. It's an appeal form. You can get that appeal form, I believe, on the county website, or you can get it directly from the DLGF website. There's subjective and objective. When there is subjective, if someone just feels like, well, I just don't think my value should be that high, or I don't think you guys got me with good condition, but I think my house is in poor condition. Those are subjective. Those are opinions of that would have to be filed on a 134. That's a part of the 130. Also, if it's a objective where something was applied illegal, a mistake of some sort, of a person has, say, we have them down for a garage that's been removed, or if they build a wood deck, and we haven't picked it up. Most people don't come add stuff, but if it's something that they've taken down, a shed that's gone, it would have to be something that would be very clear when we go out that it's an issue.
Thank you. So let me say this, and there's some other questions about appraisals, which we'll come to. But since we're talking about the appeals process, one of the things you noted, and I wanted to make sure I was clear and everyone was clear about it the last time we talked, was that when you file an appeal related to the value of your property, is there a chance that if that appraisal comes back higher than the current assessed value, that the property owner is stuck with the new appraisal? Or are they able to keep their current value even if the appraisal turns out to be higher than the current assessed value? Can you say more about that?
Under state guidelines and rules, if a person opens up a 134 appeal, not the section 3, 133, but the 134, open up an appeal, that allows the reassessment of that property to go up or to go down. So yes, that is a possibility. I've been here many, many years, and I would encourage everyone to appeal that feel that they should. I have not seen on many occasions where the assessment was taken up. And a person also has the right to withdraw an appeal at any time. I can't hear you. Okay. I can't hear you. Is this me?
Sorry about that. We had some technical challenges here. just one, I wanted to be clear on that, make sure everyone heard what Mr. Golson said. We're encouraging everyone to appeal who feels that they should appeal. But there is a chance that, especially in some areas where we know property values have been very high, that your assessed value could go even higher if the appraisal comes back that way. I just want to make sure people are clear on that. Now, when you say that the appeal can be withdrawn, at what point can it be withdrawn and one would not have that consequence?
Uh, well, we have a preliminary hearing, and we meet with individuals to go over those uh, assessments. Those are normally done. Uh, well, let me put it like this. Let me go back just a little bit. On the uh, hearings that we have here at the office, the state requires that we give individuals a 30-day notice before we can have a hearing with them. We sometimes, well, not sometimes, some individuals choose to waiver that 30 days in order that we can proceed with the hearing. At that point, if a person wants to withdraw, they can either withdraw before that hearing, or they can withdraw during that hearing.
And so when they withdraw during that hearing, they already know what the appraisal results are. Is that what you're saying, or has the appraisal not happened yet?
Some cases, yes, some cases, no.
Okay.
Yes.
I like to be very specific so that
Yeah.
folks know what information they will have before that opportunity to withdraw is eliminated. Councilwoman Brown, she's here in the chamber. You got to unmute
Yeah.
yourself.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes.
Yeah, let me, what we do is we do comps when we sit in hearings, and a lot of times it's not necessarily an appraisal, but we do a comp in a particular neighborhood, and we have at least anywhere between 5 and 10 comps. And we sit down with individuals and show them the properties before we even think about an appraisal. Show them the comps in the particular neighborhoods, and a lot of times they can determine at that point whether they want to pursue it or not.
Makes sense. Thank you. Councilwoman Brown?
My question is, how do you, some people who are not working, okay, are able to get a, I don't know what you call it, but if you're not working, you're able to get a deduction on your taxes, and so I don't know how that happens, or how do you get that?
All the deductions are approved through the county auditor's office.
Okay.
I don't know, I have not heard of any deduction based on the fact that you're not working. They have the seniors, the disabilities, there's
Yeah.
numerous deductions that you can take, mortgage, but I've never heard of any, but again, the auditor's office might have something that I don't know, but I've never heard of one for people who are unfortunate and not working.
Okay, my neighbor told me that that's how she got hers, is because she's not working. So I wanted to find out how that works, or what I need to do to check into it. Because my husband and I don't work.
Right. I would check with the auditor's office. That's where the deductions come from. And that's where all of the deductions are approved through the county auditor's office.
Through the auditor's office.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I would just add that, because I did talk with someone about it who was a senior, and they were wondering why they weren't getting the senior deduction. There is an income cap to that. And so you have to make less than $30,000 a year in order to get the senior deduction. So for a lot of seniors who may have pensions or other sources of income, retirement income, that disqualifies them. So it is an income-based deduction for the senior piece.
Yes.
It's $30,000 or less, has to be your annual income. I did want to see here, we have some more questions before we go back to the appeals process. There's a question here about the appraisers. Do any of the appraisers reside in Area 2512, which is the lakefront? If not, do these appraisers live within the Calumet Township?
To the first answer is no. The second one is yes.
Okay. How is the land assessment done in relation to the building or the improvement assessment? So how do you sort of factor those two elements of the total assessed value?
Well, the appraisers go through a process where there's building to land value. And that's a formulation that they use, building to land ratio. But on the sales, again, when you're comparing sales and you're looking at ratios with sales, then you're looking at all vacant land sales. Vacant land sales are, in a lot of communities, are limited. And so what transpires is that what the DLGF recommends is that you cross boundaries in similar communities in order to accomplish enough sales to come up with a value.
And
But
so that
right now, our appraisers appraised the land and the improvement whenever we have an appraisal done. So if I had an appraisal done on your property, it would come back with a land value and an improvement value.
And just for clarification, that land value that you're speaking of, you're looking at other land sales within that particular neighborhood district, or are you looking at land sales throughout the township?
Well, we always start within that particular community.
Okay.
But if we only have one or two sales in that particular district, then we try to move out into other areas. And sometimes you even have to cross the township walls in order to get some comparables and to evaluate the vacant land, the land values.
So with that land, is there a factor created per acre on a square footage basis when you're comparing different size lots in terms of the improvements that the properties sit on?
Well, all that's considered, yeah. And it also, we also consider what's standard in a particular area. If you have standard lots that are 50 by 125, you happen to have a lot that's 50 by 325. There's factors that are applied that would in that particular assessment based on the fact that it's outside of the norm. So we look at what's norm in a community, and that's what I say when you go in other areas, you have to look at something that was similar. If you're working in an area where there's all irregular lots, then you might want to evaluate it. If we have some land sales in another area that's similar that has irregular lots. So yeah, that is considered.
Thank you. Question here, where can we find the detailed property card? I believe that's the Lake County Assessor's website is the
Yes.
easiest way to get to it. You go on the Lake County Assessor's website, you're able to search by address and put in your address, and you can see the valuations, I believe, even for the past 5 years and how that has changed. You can see how your property is being described, how finished versus unfinished is being detailed, the square footage, the lot size, all of that exists on that property card. And you just go to the Lake County Assessor, Indiana, if you're going to do a Google search, website, and put in your address.
You know, we also have available since since last year, we've had the ability to email property record cards from our office. So if they call Calumet Township Assessor's Office and ask for a property record card to be emailed, we also have that available.
Excellent. And that phone number is 219-885-0555.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll give that information out again. Couple more questions here. Is there a way to report areas that are being undervalued?
Yes, we have people that come in and say that they feel that a property is undervalued after they review the assessed value. To give you, not too often, but if you have a similar property, for whatever reason, you have a similar property and your assessment just say is $1 amount, and you look at your neighbor and your neighbor is another assessed value, yeah, we have people to call in and say, hey, I think they're being underassessed or I'm being overassessed. So yes, we do go out and take a look at that.
Thank you. Also, it says here, are the comps being used publicly available? How many comps are used in each situation? You mentioned 1 to 2. Is there a standard number of comps that are considered?
When we consider making any type of action based on comps, it's a minimum of 5. Those comps are available, yes. And when people come in, individuals come in with the questions on their property, and we're looking at comps, we're able to pull based on sales data. We're able to pull comps and they can actually look at it right here at the office.
Excellent. Additional question here, on the treasurer's website and on the tax bills that come out, there is a gross property tax distribution amount that is much higher than the combination of the first and second installments. How do these figures relate to each other?
A little bit confused on that question.
It might be that the initial tax amount is higher, and then once the caps and other deductions are put in place, it will be a lower amount. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah, you're talking about the gross. If you're talking about the gross assessed value, that's the value that's placed. That's the value that's placed on the property through the assessor's office. Then you have any deductions that a person might receive, and then you have what they call the net assessed value of the property. And then you have the tax rate.
Makes sense.
And the net assessed value is what the referendum is based on. The gross, the 1% tax cap, 1%, 2%, and 3% are based on the gross assessed value.
So let's just review that. So the 1%, 2%, and 3% property tax caps are taken on the gross assessed value for the property when you combine the land and the improved value, which is the total.
Yes.
The referendum percentage, which I believe is 0.562 cent per $100 of assessed value, is based on the net assessed values after your mortgage, your homestead, your senior, and other deductions are taken into consideration. Okay?
Yes.
All right, wanted to make sure we're clear on that. Let's see here. Someone asked, how many years will the referendum impact property taxes? I can answer that. The question on the ballot was for 8 years. So I'm pretty sure I'm correct about that.
You know, we took I took a look at that, Councilman. I know that the referendum said 0.562. I read a couple of articles that indicated that the amount would be 72 million for the 8 years. I don't know where that number comes from, but we're assessed, Gary, District 4 is assessed at about $1.9 billion. So from my calculation, that could end up, and I don't know if they were using a possible collectible amount or not, but that equates to about $90 million.
Okay. Over the course of 8 years.
over the course of 8
Right.
years. And depend on what the assessed value is, it depended on the growth in the community, of course, it could be more.
Right. And the 1.9 billion that you referenced, that's what the total assessed value for the city is. It's not necessarily what we actually get in terms of collections.
Right,
Okay. So
right.
that there may
And
be some.
the collection rate changes. I haven't looked at the one lately, but Gary was very low. A lot of communities are 90 to 100% in some cases. Gary was down at one point to 50% collection rate, eventually moved to almost 85% collection rate for a couple of years. And so I don't know currently what that collection rate is right now.
And I just want to be clear for everyone that it's not that we receive $1.9 billion in property tax revenue, is that the total value of all the real estate, including nonprofits, including City Hall, for example, has an assessed value. So that's the total assessed value. And then, of course, you have to apply the 1, 2, and 3% tax caps, and then deal with the collection rate of what actually comes in. I didn't want people to think that the city is bringing in $1.9 billion a year in revenue.
When I looked at the numbers, I excluded the 600 nonprofits
Okay, good.
to make sure that I got kind of a good number. Yeah. Also looked at the hasn't been a lot of growth in commercial industrial. Pretty much the same.
Thank you. Let's see here. I wanted to turn back to the appeals process and just make sure we're clear that there's one form, it's the 130 form. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the 130 form includes a 134 section on it. Is that correct?
No, the 134 is the form that we produce once we determine to make our final determination, to issue our final determination.
Okay.
Section 3 is on the 130 form. For 133, that would be the other section that you're speaking of.
And that's where you were getting into the subjective versus the objective.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And just for review, subjective is, I think my property should be worth less, or I don't think it's right. Objective is technical questions, square footage,
Yes.
finished, unfinished, building materials, the age of the property, those types of issues. You're muted. Councilwoman Brown.
I'm sorry, did you say there is a card that you can get to fill out for that, whether subjective or objective?
That's the 130 appeal form.
130 appeal form, okay.
Yeah. And I believe they have that 130 appeal form where you can download it, print it out on the county website, or you can go to the Department of Local Government and Finance to their forms and search the 130 form and download it that way.
Okay.
And you can also come into the Calumet Township Assessor Office,
Yes.
which is at 501 East 5th Avenue. And you can schedule an appointment or come by and to get that form. And I'm sure you have folks there who are able to help folks to complete the form.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so on the referendum, I wanted to give you an opportunity to explain again and for clarity how that rate is applied.
On the referendum, that is, first of all, that's not subject to any cap. So that is applied to the net assessed value with the rate of 0.562. Again, a lot of the throughout the city, I know that there was a significant property value increase in Miller in 2512. We also saw the same thing in Griffith. Outside of Griffith and Miller, most of the communities have remained stagnant. There's been very, very small growth as far as the assessed values. So a lot of seniors and other people that have incomes that have incomes that have called and have seen significant increases. So most of those that we have seen and evaluated, the average home assessment throughout the rest of the city, most of those people are receiving increases of about $250 to $400 based on the assessed valuations of their properties. But those individuals on a fixed income have noticed it the most, have made the call. I've gotten even calls that asking, which is a legislative question, have asked, well, what can we do to reverse this? I have no idea how that could come about once the referendum was voted on. But that's pretty much the impact of the average citizen is between probably $200 and $400.
Thank you. Let's see here. Couple questions going back to values. One question here is about how many nonprofit properties are in the Miller area. The 600 number that you referenced was citywide, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I have not pulled out nonprofits in Miller per se. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Could we please get a follow-up answer for the tax roll collections? What is the most recent year that we have data for, and what was the rate of collection?
Again, I haven't checked the recent collection data, and of course, individuals still are paying for 21. I'm not sure about 20, but I believe that collection rate was probably about 70%. But that's the question for the auditor.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Well, what I will add is that one thing that we're definitely trying to do is to ensure that the dollars that are flowing to the school corporation are being well managed. And we know that there is state control and state oversight of those dollars, as well as an ambassador committee where there are about 75 residents, and there was an open application for people to be involved to make suggestions on the use of those dollars, to ask questions about the use of those dollars. And so we will, as we've done before, regularly have Dr. McNulty from the Gary Community School Corporation to come before the First District as well as the City Council to explain what work they are doing and to answer residents' questions and to have a good sense of what is happening with those dollars and how they are being used as it relates to question that was presented to the public on the ballot. We do have an additional question here. Does the neighborhood show anywhere on the tax form? So when you're looking at your tax form, are you able to see which neighborhood code? We said there's 97 of them in the city that you're in.
Your property record card identifies the neighborhood, but the actual tax bill that's sent out does not reflect the neighborhood.
Okay, and so the property card, just as a reminder, you can get that on the Lake County Assessor's website. You can also call the Calumet Township Assessor Office and they will email you a copy of your property card.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other insights you would add for folks as it relates to doing appeals? Any things that you think people should especially know or take into consideration?
For me, I can only encourage anyone, again, protect your rights. And if you feel that, that your assessment is incorrect, then please file an appeal. I encourage everyone to do that if you feel that your assessment is not correct. Also, we have individuals, I know it's been implemented for some years now, but having issues with the stormwater fees and the way that those are applied as far as property class is concerned. We are currently going to attempt to meet with the city about those stormwater fees and how they are applied. So that's something that we're currently working on now.
Oh,
Thank you.
what is the deadline? Is there a deadline for you to file an appeal?
The deadline is June 15th.
June 15th. Okay, thank you.
June 15th.
And so people do they have the option of going directly to the township assessor's office or going to the Lake County assessor's office? Does it matter which office you go to?
No, it does not.
Okay.
You can file it. You
Okay.
can file either one.
Okay, so you can go to Crown Point at the county assessor's office, or you can go to the Calumet Township office right at 501 East 5th Avenue, and your hours are
8:30 to 4:30,
8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. And the phone number again is 219-885-0555. So that is the contact information. We will be sure, I'll get that list of the 119 properties for in 2512.
Yes.
And once I receive that from you, I will post it on Nextdoor. And if it's in a link form, I'll also post it on Facebook, and we can send it out to our email list. I will say to everyone, if you're not on our email list, please call the council office at 219-881-1315 or email Sherry Smith at smith@gary.gov. And that way we can send out more rapid communications. In our next first district mailer that goes out, which will be coming out in a few weeks, I will include additional information about the appeals process and contact information for the Calumet Township Assessor Office so that people will have ready access to that information and can share it with neighbors. So if there are no other questions, we can probably prepare to end. I want to thank Mr. Golson for being with us, as well as my colleagues, Councilwoman Barnes-Caldwell and Councilwoman Brown. And I look forward to having future meetings with the Calumet Township Assessor's Office if necessary, as well as the Gary Community School Corporation. We will have our next regularly scheduled first district meeting on April 22nd. So we're doing a double header this week, which is Thursday, April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. We'll be focused on public safety. So we will have Chief of Police Brian Evans, as well as Beach Patrol, as we get ready for the summer season. So that will be this Thursday at 6:30 p.m., also via Zoom. If you do not have the login information, please contact us at 219-881-1315. All right, so thank you, everyone. Please continue to be safe. Take the vaccination, which is available at the mass vaccination site at Roosevelt, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Hi, Penny. It's good to see you as well.
Thank you,
again,
Councilman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a
All
great
right.
evening.